name is Pavel. I'm a senior solution engineer here at Progress. This session is going to be sort of a, again, getting started session where we cover some of the basics of Sitefinity Insights. So if we take a look at the agenda that we have for today, right, we want to talk about how to actually connect Sitefinity Insight with Sitefinity CMS, how to understand the data that Sitefinity Insight is going to collect automatically. Again, for those of you who have absolutely no idea about Sitefinity Insight, it is our customer data platform. It allows us to track user activities and analyze user journeys. So we want to understand what type of data we're collecting. We also want to understand how to use it, right? So how to track specific key events that happen alongside the customer journey. In this case, we are going to be talking about touch points and conversions. And lastly, we'll also take a look forward in terms of what we're going to cover next sessions, right? Because we're going to collect data, we're going to track it, we'll see some performance metrics, but we also want to make sure to be able to activate off of that data afterwards. So we're going to have a sneak preview of how we can do that as well. And of course, we are going to finish up with a Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them along as we go. I will try to answer some questions in between the different topics, but we will have a dedicated Q&A session in the end as well. All right, so um, first off, before we dive into Insight directly, we do want to set the stage a little bit. So for today's workshop, we are going to be working with a fictional data center of a fictional bank. It's actually tied to a website that we use a lot internally here at Progress as well. So this is the fictional quantum digital bank that offers a lot of banking services, right? Personal credit cards, car loans, home loans, corporate savings accounts, and so on and so forth, right? So we don't need to have this website up and running. Anything that we are going to be doing today is completely within Sitefinity Insight, except for the first step. But the idea here is, right, a lot of us have had to deal with banks, right? We have credit cards, we have mortgages we want to pay off, and so on and so forth. So we thought it would be a relatable topic for today. So with that being said, again, we are going to jump back into Sitefinity Insight here. And we're going to start with the very first step here, right? How do we connect Insight with the Sitefinity CMS? So there is a native integration between Sitefinity CMS and Sitefinity Insight. And it's actually very simple to achieve this, right? So some of you might be familiar with the Sitefinity user interface here, right? This is the backend portal of Sitefinity, the admin panel, as we like to call it. And here under the administration section, there is a Sitefinity Insight connector, right? So this Sitefinity Insight connector, again, it's available out of the box. And it comes with your Sitefinity installation. You should have access to it. If you don't, let us know. We can help you get that access. But the idea here is that we have an instance of Sitefinity CMS and an instance of Sitefinity Insight, and we need to connect them. Now here you can see that my connection is disconnected, and I can actually reconnect it. This is because I've used this setup before. But I'm going to change the connection, and this is going to be the exact same process that you're going to go through. If you haven't connected Insight before, you'll have the button say connect here instead of reconnect, and you will be prompted for a API key. So here we have this access key that we have to input it in here. And while you don't want to necessarily connect these demo trial data centers that we've provided to your current Sitefinity instance, right? You can still follow along, at least in terms of generating the API key, right? Just so we remember where it is when we decide to connect Insight to our CMS. And we can do that from the administration section on the top right-hand side. Here, we are going to see the option to generate access keys. And with those access keys, you can generate a brand new one. You can give it a name. So I'm going to call this my webinar access key. And I can either give myself access to all data centers that I have access to if you're managing multiple ones, or I can select a specific data center that I want to use, right? And I can only limit myself to the trial data center that we're going to be using. Once we have this key generated, you can click copy, and then you can go back here, paste it into Sitefinity CMS, press connect, and that's it. Now, again, if you are following along, just going through this step is perfectly fine. You don't have to copy the key and paste it in your Sitefinity instance, but this is how we would go about connecting Sitefinity to Insight. And in my case, I'll just go ahead and continue with a new account. And after that, here we just need to enable the site tracking, right? So what I can do is I can track my default website, connect it to the specific data center that I made available, and we're good to go. And from here on out, Sitefinity Insight is going to be enabled on your website. It's going to track data for your visitors, right? Pages that they visit, documents that they download, videos that they play, and so on and so forth. And this is what we're going to see as we go along today. Now, we have our setup. We're ready to jump into sort of the analytics here. And we'll just jump into the data center right here. So we're going to go back into our data center here. And we just want to take a quick look of the menu here on the left-hand side, right? And we'll see that there's three categories of options that we have, right? Performance metrics, optimization metrics, and audience metrics. And we are going to be covering all of those along the three sessions that we are going to have. But for today, we are going to be focusing purely on the performance section here. So this is what we want to start with very, very quickly. The very first thing is something that you might be familiar with from other tools, such as Google Analytics, for example. But this is our content report, right? And we can see what pages we have, how many page views we're getting, how many of those are unique, the average time that a visitor might spend on a specific page. And here we can actually see these cryptic NANs. This is the magic of dummy data, right? Dummy data and bots don't spend time on pages, so that's why we don't see this. But usually you would have an average amount of time that people spend on those pages. Similar to that, documents and videos, if you have any uploaded on your site, we'll see, okay, how popular are they? Are people watching the videos? Are they downloading the documents? So now the more interesting metrics here are going to be conversions and touch points. And we're actually going to start with touch points first because touch points are key interactions along the user journey that we want to track, whether they are initiated by us or by the visitors. We want to make sure that we're tracking them. So just to give you a very quick example of a few touch points, right? We can run an email campaign for first-time home buyers, and we want to offer them a mortgage, right? We may want to track that as a touch point, right? We also have rate tables on our website, right? If people want to understand, okay, what are the different mortgage rates? Maybe we have a calculator. We want to make sure that that tool is being used, right? So this is another example of a key interaction that we want to track. Now, we are going to dig deeper into touch points in just a little bit, but I just want to go through the other metrics that we have here. And the next one is actually going to be conversions, right? And I like to phrase the conversions as kind of the ultimate end goal of everything that we're doing with Sitefinity Insight, because the idea of tracking user behavior, analyzing it, and optimizing it is to ensure that we are achieving our business goals. And conversions are those end business goals that we're trying to achieve. And we definitely want to track how many people are converting into those desired goals, right? So here we can see we have a very generic one, such as a contact us form being submitted, but we also have things like people inquiring for a home loan or people inquiring for an investment plan, right? So when we have our website, when we have our campaigns, we want to make sure that we're navigating people towards those specific conversions. And we want to see, right, are we performing well, right? So we have a 5% conversion into home loan inquiries from the social media campaign that we're running versus a 1.42% conversion rate for just generic home loan inquiries, right? So this social campaign is obviously having an impact here. So there are a few more metrics that are related to both touch points and conversions. And these are actually calculated in these two reports that we see here, the Uplift report and the attribution report. So we'll start with the Uplift report. And the Uplift report actually tells us, okay, all of these strategic touch points that we've identified, right? All of our targeted efforts towards our audience on the left-hand side here. How are they actually contributing to conversions, right? If we're sending out email campaigns, we want to have an end result. We can see, okay, there is a interesting correlation here, right? People who receive home loan campaigns are also interested in investment plans, but we can also see that yes, people are converting into home loan inquiries after receiving that first home buyer email that we sent out to them, right? And we can also see these uplifts by specific conversions, right? So if we look at something like the investment plans inquiry here, right? Or actually, let's filter this out because we have a lot of noise here, and we'll just look at home loan inquiries, right? So if we look at home loan inquiries, we can see, okay, these are the most popular touch points that are contributing to home loan inquiries, right? Our email campaigns, they are working out great, right? If we take a look at the conversion rate uplift metric here, we can see that people who have received an email like this are essentially almost 7 times more likely to convert because we have 17% of people interacting with this touch point converting versus 2% over the entire customer base that we have. So this is definitely helping us out here. Similarly to that, right? We have a paid search campaign that we're running. People who have come from that paid search campaign that we're running, right? 24% of those people are converting versus only 2.16% from my regular audience. So these are the types of metrics that we are definitely interested in, right? We're putting in some effort. How is that effort helping us achieve these strategic conversions that we're tracking? This is going to be very similar with the attribution report here as well, right? Because with attribution, we can actually see how the content on our website is helping us with conversions, right? We can see that, for example, our home loan rate tables are the best performing, is the best performing page on our site because 77 people who interacted with this table ended up converting um, into one of our conversions here. And something that's also interested here, right, is the fact that we have different attribution models that we can use. Some of you might be familiar with those, right? Linear attribution just means that every step along the user journey is counted equally. First touch means that the first step from the user journey is given the most weight when it comes to attributing to conversion success. Last touch, right, the final step of the journey is given the most weight. But what we default to using in Insight is sort of a proprietary AI-driven algorithm that we've developed, which understands and compares user journeys and where they end up in order to give you a much more holistic view of which content or which touch point as well is contributing the most to our conversions. And this is a very easy way to identify, right? Okay, what are our best performing campaigns? Let's do more of those versus what are not so well running campaigns, and maybe we should spend less effort there as well. So all of this data is, again, something that Insight captures automatically, something that we can define to track, and then something that we can get reports on. Now, what we want to do is we want to understand how we can define these touch points, how we can define these conversions so that we know exactly what we're tracking and how it's performing. So again, I am just going to go very quickly here, just to change the topic. Right now, we're going to be focusing specifically on touch points. So going back into our touch points setup here, and this is again something that you can follow along with, right? Because we are going to be defining a new touch point. But we can see that we already have quite a few of those defined, right? And we also have the ability here on the top right-hand side to define a new touch point. And this is what we're going to do, right? We're going to define a new touch point. We're going to keep this simple. We will have a home loans landing page that we have created, and we want to understand how many people are hitting that landing page. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this touch point a name. This will be our home loans landing page, as I mentioned. And then we have to define what contributes to this touch point, right? Which interaction exactly helps us understand this. So when we're defining the touchpoint criteria, we're going to see that we have some options here on the left-hand side, right? Visiting a specific page, visiting a page with specific UTM parameters being included, but also things like downloading files, right? Searching for something on our website, registering, logging in, playing a video on the website, and so on and so forth, right? So these are our standard web-based metrics, and these are going to be tracked automatically when you connect Sitefinity CMS to Sitefinity Insight. However, as I mentioned in the very beginning, Insight is a customer data platform, which means that we are trying to unify data from multiple different sources. And this is where we can also record custom interactions, right? From our CRM, from our email campaign tool, from any other systems of record that we have for our audience, right? We can report these interactions as well. And this is a sneak peek for session 3. We're going to see some examples of how we can do that. But the idea is we can also combine data from multiple different sources. In our case, right, we're just getting started. Let's go with visiting a page. So we're going to visit the page. Rather than specifying the exact URL, again, because this will be different for every website and so on and so forth, we'll just look for the part of the URL. So you can switch this from the top here, and then you can just enter /home loans. This is what our page is called. And we are going to press done, save our touch point. And this is going to start generating a report for us. Now, while this report generates, I want to go back out of the touch point, and we're going to revisit this in a couple of minutes. But I just want to show you what a fully tracked touch point looks like, right? When we go into, for example, this social media campaign that we're running on home loans, we are going to see how many people are interacting with the social media campaigns. We're going to see how many of them are non-contacts as well, right? So people who have identified themselves in one way or another. We are going to see hits by persona, right? So we have some personas and some segments already defined. We're going to cover that in session 2, but we can see that we're getting a lot of home loan prospects hitting this touch point, which is great for us. We're also going to see where they came from, right? This is a social media campaign, so they came from Instagram, Facebook, Google, and where they went to, right? And the good thing is, yes, they are going to our home loans page. Yes, they are looking at our rate tables. Yes, they are looking at our calculator. So whatever we're doing with the social media campaign is working. And lastly, we also have conversion uplifts, right? Which conversions is this campaign contributing to? It's contributing to home loans. That's awesome. That's what we want to see, right? So this is what a fully realized touchpoint looks like, right? We're not just getting information about how many hits we're getting, but we're also getting a lot more strategic details on how this touchpoint is contributing to our ultimate end goals. Now, let's exit out of the touchpoints and go back to the touchpoint that we defined just now. All right, there we go. So looks like this report is still being generated. We can go back to it a little bit later. And just to let you know, those reports are usually refreshed every 24 hours. When we're creating them from scratch, usually that's a little bit faster. So that's why I'm hoping to get some results right now. We are going to move on to conversions. And again, conversions is going to be a shorter topic for us. The practical process of tracking conversions is exactly the same as the process of tracking touchpoints, right? So when we're defining a conversion, we can give it a name. So again, let's say that instead of a home loan inquiry, right, we're looking for, I don't know, a car loan inquiry. Here, we can define the conversion event. This time we can use something a little bit more advanced, right? A custom interaction here. Someone has applied for a car loan. Here we can see, right, the last 3 reported values, credit cards, loan increases, home loans. But in our case, we're going to be applying for a car loan. So if our conversions are directly tied to monetary value. Let's say our conversion is kind of more like online e-commerce conversion, right? When we're selling a product or a subscription or something like that, we can provide that monetary value here, which will allow us to actually see how much money we're making from all of these conversions combined, right? So if I say that the car loan is on average $10,000, right, we will know that every time someone applies for a car loan, we're expecting around $10,000 of worth of value from this conversion. Now, once we save this conversion, again, as with touch points, this is going to take some time to generate, but we are going to go into one of our pre-made conversions here, the home loan social campaign inquiry. And again, similarly to, excuse me, similarly to touch points, we're going to see how many total people are converting, what percentage of our entire customer base is converting, right? How many of those are unique? How many of these people are non-contacts at this point? And again, we're going to see some reports here, right? Which people are converting into this specific conversion? What is the uplift, right? What are the attributing pages? We can see those details that I showed you earlier, but on a per conversion level that we have right here. And one thing that, again, I want to call out, which is also a relatively fresh functionality of Sitefinity Insight, is the probability for new conversions. Now, as with the AI-driven attribution, there's a large language model on the background that is used to analyze this data and understand how many people are close to converting, how many people are likely to convert, but not necessarily close to conversion. And then there's actually a third band that we don't see here, which is the low conversion probability as well. So here you can actually view which contacts are close to converting, which contacts are on their way to converting, and you can use that information to target them better, right? Send them a final push in an email campaign, personalize the website specifically for those people so that they continue where they left off last time, for example, on their journey, and so on and so forth, right? So this is again actionable data that we have from conversions that is going to allow us to be much more focused and much more targeted in the efforts that we are putting into, again, our business and our campaigns. So again, as I mentioned, conversions, we already covered the reporting side of things. We already covered how to define touch points and conversions. So much shorter session, but definitely a useful functionality uh, to keep track of. To finish up for today, we do also want to have a look forward of what we're going to be doing with Insight, right? At the moment, we really spoke about kind of content performance, right? We're running a campaign. We want to see how that affects our conversions. We launched a new product, right? We want to see how many people are buying that product, for example. But in general, there's a lot more to Insight. And this goes on to the fact that we can segment our audience and we can understand their behavior, what interests them, and we can speak to them on their terms. So in session number 2, what we are going to be talking about is the audience section right here, where we have the different types of personas that we can define, different types of customer journeys that we can define, right? A lot of you will be familiar with the typical sales funnel or the marketing funnel, where we have things like awareness, consideration, application, purchase, customer advocacy, whatever we have at the other end of the funnel. But we are going to be looking at how we can define these personas, right? How can we figure out what our ideal customer profile is in order to talk to them with what interests them? How can we understand where someone is at in their journey, right? Are they considering our product? Are they aware of it, but they don't plan on doing, or they're not planning on continuing on their journey? How can we push them into that next strategic stage? So we are going to be talking a lot about audience analytics and how that works in Sitefinity Insight. And for session number 3, we are going to be looking at personalization as one example, right? We've analyzed our audience, we know what they're interested in. How do we personalize our website and tailor their experience in order to match what they're looking for on the website, instead of them having to do multiple clicks or get lost on the website figuring out what they're looking for? Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.